Welcome to the Art of Lifting podcast. Today I am joined by Kate. Did you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi everyone, I'm Kate Sweatman, 2023 Open World Champion and current GB Juniors equipped head coach. And that'll do to start off with. I think we'll probably go into it a little bit more in a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure most people listening will already know who you are. You've been around for a while. You are, I think in my head, you're the face of Equipped, especially here in GB. Like you are, if I think of Equipped lifting, it's you that I think of. And I think most of the Equipped lifters I follow are probably coached by you as well at this point. I did notice on your open powerlifting though, you actually started off classic, which I didn't know that. So firstly, how did you get into powerlifting in the first place?
Okay. Well, I always trained. I played rugby originally. And I sort of got into training a little bit more as time went on. And after 12 years on the front row, the numbers on the bar started to excite me a little bit more than like the game. So I followed a couple of old legends of the sport into who I'd followed for a long time. So Charlie Murillier, I'd known her from my rugby days and watched her have some real success in the sport. And Kelly Fazy, she was a good friend of mine. I played rugby with her as well. So I thought, you know what, that looks pretty interesting. Let's dip our toe in the water. And yeah, the rest's history really. So
yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, Charlie she now runs the kind of coaching courses in GB, doesn't she? So she does. That's actually where I didn't really know of her as a lifter before that, but yeah, I see her name everywhere now with the coaching courses. So she's still very involved, really like great person in the sport. And then I remember Kelly Fazy when I started. I feel like she was one of the top 84s when I started, or 84 plus when I started. I think I met her at Commonwealth briefly. She won't remember that, but I remember following along and just being really amazed by her lifts. So yeah, there's some names that I don't actually hear that often anymore. But I don't think Kelly's competing anymore, as far as I'm aware.
No, I think she took a step away from the sport, which is a shame because she was really, really good. And you're right, she was one of the top over 84s in her day. So it's pretty inspiring. She was my first coach actually. So it was quite the pairing back when I first started. And yeah, she was very inspirational to me too. So I had those two inspirational women. I thought I'd quite like to be a little bit like that. Let's go.
Perfect. And so you start off classic. I'm assuming it was, like you said, like just weight training through rugby, and then you just kind of enjoyed the weight training side. Went into classic. Where in the timeline did you decide to try Equipped and kind of go all in on Equipped?
Well, I was only classic for a couple of years, or only dedicated classic for a couple of years. And I did actually really enjoy it. But it was Kelly who said to me, I think it was after I did the West Midlands in 2018, and I got the 200 kilo squat, which was like massive back then. And they're 10 a penny now, but back then in GB, like I think I was one of the first 5 or 6 women to achieve that. So that just shows how much the sport's grown in classic since then. It's just gone nuts, which is fantastic, and I love to see it. And she went, you should do the British Equipped. And I'm like, excuse me? And she was like, no, you stand it, you could win it if you get in a suit and it works for you, and you can work the bench shirt. And I was like, all right then, sure. And because of the timings, there was only about 6 or 7 weeks to train between that competition and the British Equipped. So it was a ride. But But we managed it, and sure enough, I had a successful outing at the British Equipped that year after what was probably the hardest prep I've ever done and ever will do. And I still dabbled in classic for a little bit that year, and then after that, I was kind of like, no, actually, I think I want a gun to be the best equipped lifter that I can be, and the rest is history. Really, we just went all in.
I think it's really cool that obviously like bench shirts, we'll talk more about, I don't know tons about Equipped, but obviously bench shirts, when you get them to work, they can add so much to it. But considering the turnaround, which was literally like you said, a few weeks between the West Midlands where you benched classic 95, you then benched 140 at British Equipped. Obviously it was in a shirt, but you did not have much time to learn to use a shirt either. That's an insane difference.
I mean, it was wild. I was in both squat suit and a bench shirt pretty much every week for every training of every week available. And I was exhausted because the lift's not the same technically. There are nuances to learn. I mean, I was in a big bench shirt by comparison to what I'm in now. So you can work a bigger bench shirt and get something out of it. But then, like you said, I benched 140 then, and then we look at the numbers which we're moving now, 4 or 5 years later. The learning curve and the difference in the use of the equipment does grow from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I was in a smaller squat suit, but I've put a bit of weight on since then. But
I think just for reference as well, for anyone that doesn't know, so your best bench in competition to this day, 227?
Yeah, I did that at FitFest in December.
That's so crazy. Like I find equipped so interesting. And I think there's a rhetoric at the minute where people are saying that equipped powerlifting is dying. And I think in some, like, as someone, I mostly follow the classic side, I'll confess, but I feel like from what I'm seeing, I'm meeting a lot of people that are now trying equips. And I think at least at a GB level, equip seems to be growing. I just want to know what you thought about that.
I think there has been a struggle in recent history of getting people to try it. But I think that the new generation of open lifters are very keen on helping other people try it. So what we've got now is we've got lots of people like up in the Northwest, up at Stalybridge, Kim and one of the other clubs there are doing a really good job at making it more accessible and supporting people into equipment. And so you're seeing a big surge in the uptake up there in the Northwest. And obviously we've got other open age lifters who are new to kit, who are like, come on, let's try it. They're getting their university club mates to get into kit and to try it. So it's starting to grow. And the youngsters, so the juniors and the sub-juniors who I work with, they all talk to each other and they all leg each other on. And so they're doing a really good job at getting more youngsters interested into kit and trying. And obviously we had the success of the likes of Gregory last year, who went out and won worlds. And if that didn't inspire some kids to get into kit and try it, I don't know what will. So I don't think it's dying. I think that what it's lacked is necessarily the amount of support across the country to enable people to do it. There's always been 1 or 2 hubs, but now there are more popping up. So you probably see it grow a little bit more in the next few years. Fingers crossed. That's what we want.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. I think the thing that I love seeing with equipped lifters is it's such a team sport. Like, you need to have each other around to help, especially when you're newer and you're first learning how all the kit works. Like, you need more of a mentor. You need the team around you. And you could see it. So the weekend just gone was the equipped British, and you could just see it, like everyone together. Like, I wasn't there in person, but online, all I'm seeing is everyone there together, everyone working together as a team. And classic definitely has elements of community and a team, but like, I train alone at home. Yes, I've got friends in the sport, but it's not the same. And I think for people that are just like, let's say you've left school, you've left college, you've left university even, and you don't really have that social life anymore, equipped is probably the best route for you if you're looking for more of a community side of it.
Well, it used to be clubs, didn't it? Back in the day, like everywhere was a powerlifting club. And so that's where your team was that helped you with your equipment. And obviously Classic has done so well for making the sport more accessible to everybody, because you can do it by yourself. So it's created this explosion in lifting, which is fantastic. But you do, like you said, you do still need those people who know you in kit and who you can rely on to help you in your kit and to know what you need and when to make equip really work for you. It's very hard to do it on your own. There are people out there who do it by themselves, like Tony Cliff up there. He's always just trained for the most part in that garage by himself in full kit. I don't know how he does that, but it's admirable. And it's exciting. But then you've got like Gosport, where they all turn up on the same day and they're doing their kit and everyone's working together for each other, and it's just different. And if team sport's what you're into, then equip's probably more likely the route which you would prefer to go down if you wanted that community feel. Yeah, and you didn't, for example, just want to train or have to train by yourself because of your circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this leads nicely to, if someone wants to try equipped, what advice would you give them? Where would you tell them to go? Like, I know you guys run like group sessions and taster sessions, and I know you're someone that is always happy to help anyone that wants to try. But yeah, what would your advice be if someone came to you and said, all right, I think I want to try equipped, I'm not sure?
Okay, well, in most regions now, there's somebody who we can point you to. I think I put a list up on Instagram a while ago, and we suggested that needs to go on the website, but I don't think it's quite found its way there yet. But speak to somebody who you know who does it. Yeah, if you're interested in getting into it, the chances are you've seen somebody on Instagram somewhere doing it. So speak to them. They'll be able to point you to the person in your region who's probably good. I mean, off the cuff, if we're going to be talking up in Scotland, Mo Gordon, she's a coach up there and she does equipped. She'd be more than happy to help. If we're in Yorkshire Northeast, then there's a hub at Northeast Strength Culture in Darlington. Go there. Kim at Stalybridge, she'd be more than happy to help you up in the Northwest. Midlands, I'm in the Midlands. I'm happy to sort of drift around the West Midlands, East Midlands and help out. Charlie down in the Southeast, Tom Morgan in Wales. There's people everywhere. Yeah, Fitness 24 in Gosport, and then Angus Gardner, who's down in London, he's always more than happy to help, as well as Craig Coggle down in the Southeast. There's people there. You just need to ask and they'll be more than happy to help. Genuinely. We want more people in equipment.
I like that you mentioned that. You actually, when you said Tom Morgan, so I hadn't met Tom before until Commonwealth, where he was one of the coaches there. And obviously he was coaching for Wales. And I actually bumped into him the next morning after I competed at a safari. And somehow there was a group of us talking about trying a bench shirt. And I was like, I don't understand. And I think actually a lot of people, after they competed Classic at Commonwealth, did meet up with the equipped guys and all try shirts and everything. Just to give it a go. And it's so, like you say, any people that do equip, they want to bring more people in. Like, they want it to grow, they want it. So yeah, I think that's really good. Like, if you want to try equip, just reach out to the people you name.
I think there's a misunderstanding about equipment, that equip lifters are very keen to be like, no, the shirt doesn't do all of the work for you. Please come and try it so that you can see how it actually works. And well, the shirt's a gateway drug into full power anyway. Like, most people who try equipment will get in a bench shirt first, and then they'll go from benching to, all right, I'll try the squat suit then afterwards, because the squat suit tends to come with the knee wraps, which aren't always that nice. So people try, oh, I don't know if I want that really. But the bench shirt's always a nice place to start. Come on, we'll try a bench shirt. You'll love it.
You know what? I would love to try. I don't know if my fear is that I would feel a bit claustrophobic in it, but I guess you'd start looser, right? And just work your way into it.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to start in really, really tight kit. Like, it's going to be really hard for you to learn and to get to grips with. I'm an advocate for starting in looser kit and learning the line, learning how it works, and then gradually getting smaller, or gradually changing how you set the equipment so that it gets harder to use and you get more out of it. Like, if you go and try and drive the F1 race car straight away without learning to drive something sensible first, the chances are you're not going to get very far, right? And bench shirts are similar to that in my mind.
Yeah, no, I really like that analogy. I also like that you mentioned there is definitely a misconception that people think you put on kit, you add tons to your total, which is definitely not true. And like, I can see that in like a lot of the people I know that do equipped, and it's such a skill. And actually, I've never really competed with people that do equipped until All England's last year, when Miriam was in my flight and you were handling her, and watching adjusting her kit between attempts, trying to figure out what she needed and stuff like that. Like, it's not just as simple as, oh, just get your line right, it'll be fine. Like, there's so much to it. And I find it interesting.
It is. There is more to it than you just put the shirt on and it does the work, or you just put the suit on and you're suddenly going to magic loads and loads of kilos on your squat. Now, if you've got a very technically good squat that's suited to kit, yeah, you probably would be able to put a squat suit on to increase your squat. Of course you will. That's what the equipment does. That's what it's there for. But in a lot of cases, there are differences between a raw squat and an equipped squat, because equipped, you'll notice they tend to sit back into their suit more rather than have that degree of knee shift that you get in classic. So it's almost a little bit more posterior dominant. So the technique is just slightly different. And if you haven't got that, then you're not going to effectively use the equipment and you're not going to maximize what you get out of it. And obviously then when you stick the knee wraps on, you can wrap them either as loosely or as tightly as you would like. And that's going to affect how you feel in your equipment, and also, again, how much you're going to get out of it. Because a tight wrap will give you quite a lot. And then a tight wrap plus a tight suit used well is going to give you a lot. But to get there, you've got to learn how. You're not just going to get it straight away.
Yeah. I think it might have been Miriam actually that also posted on her story once. It wasn't too long ago. I remember her saying something that she loves about Equipped, which I actually really liked, was it almost levels the playing field a little bit more, because with Classic, there's so much of that is going to be genetic, especially if you see the surge of some people coming in that are just skyrocketing to the top pretty much straight away. And a lot of that, although hard work, is going to be genetics. And of course, genetics will also impact in Equipped. But Equipped also, there's so much more skill behind it that it does almost level that playing field a little bit for those that maybe haven't got the genetics to make it to the top in Classic.
Potentially, but I'll caution you there, because the strongest Equipped lifters are not weak Classic.
Oh, of course. Right? It will definitely be both.
The chances are, if they're a very, very, very good world class Equipped lifter, chances are is they've got a very good Classic base behind that, and they would give people a run for their money. There is the possibility to really maximize your strength in equipment where you might not necessarily be one of the strongest Classic lifters. I mean, I'm going to pluck the bench shirt out of the air again, because the people who are most skilled at using a bench shirt will get about 100 kilos out of their bench shirt. All right, that's me. I'll hold my hands up to it. But there's a couple of other lifters in Britain who are also doing similar in terms of what their bench shirt gives them. But the majority of people will get 20, 30, 40 kilos. So it depends, doesn't it, on how you look at it. If you're looking at their raw bench, and their raw bench is a very, very, very good raw bench, but they're only getting 20, 30, 40 kilos out of it, then they're not going to have the world-class Equipped bench, because they're not getting the really big number. There's a little bit more to it than.
Yeah, no, I find that so intriguing. I don't think there's enough information out there about Equipped, which is why I wanted to have you on, because and I remember when I've spoken to you in the past, like, you can see how much you love it, and anyone that does Equipped, like, obviously people that do Classic love it, but there's like another level of excitement, I think, behind Equipped that I don't think enough people see.
I get so excited. I really, really do. You know, when you adjust somebody's equipment, and I love coaching. I love lifting, don't get me wrong, but I love coaching as well. And I love that you can make those small adjustments to somebody's shirt, and it make the world of difference to what happens out there on the platform. I think there was a good instance this week, one that was one of my, like, oh my God, I could have cried moments with young Emily Shergold. And she came to me, she's like, I've not pressed anything more than this in training. Well, that's all right. We adjusted the shirt, and she had 2 really good first and second attempts. And I said to her, and I think she did, I can't remember. It was like 102 or something on her second. And I looked and I was like, well, what's the British record then? And they said 117.5. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. Like, she's like, really? I haven't pressed anything like that. And I'm like, no, it's fine. We can adjust the shirt. And we did all of the shirt adjustments and made it really, really aggressive for her. She went out there and smoked it. And you're like, so out of nowhere, we managed to pull that just through manipulating the shirt, which you can't do Classic at all. Like you say, if you're not strong enough today, you're not strong enough today. And that's that. Whereas sometimes in equipment, you might not necessarily be feeling your best, but you can manipulate the equipment to still go out there and have a good day. Equally, you might not be feeling your best, but you need to be at a point to be able to use your equipment. And if you're not there, then you're going to have a very bad day. And I did that last year at the Arnold's when I went out and bombed my squats and my bench, because I just had one of those really bad days. And I had a great time. I laughed the entire time. I was just, oh, well, it's just not my day, is it? Move on.
I think that's another thing with Equipped as well that I think keeps it exciting, is you have no idea who's going to win. Not really. Like, I'm sure when it gets to like top end, there are more reliable lifters that you can probably predict. But
yeah, but anyone could bum out at any point.
Yeah,
because
exactly
they might
that.
just have that one bad day where their equipment might fit slightly differently. And it does fit differently on body weight. It fits differently if it's too warm in the room. So like as you're sweating, the equipment does get a little bit more forgiving. So that can impact on what you're able to get out of it. Ordinarily, I wouldn't advise changing your equipment from training to what you put on the day, but some lifters are known to do that, and that doesn't always pay off. And a lot depends on what you're risking. So if you're going to go safe, then you're probably going to be all right. But then if you're at the top of the game, you're risking it all. You sort of walk that tightrope of, okay, it's do or die time. We've got to go. Like if you, for example, I tend to walk the line of I'm going to go to win, but in order to win, you sort of have to risk everything.
Yeah.
So you can, like, if I'm going to push for podium or push for first or second, I've got to open here in order to get there. And there's a mentality, certainly with me personally, it's like if I shoot for the stars and I fail miserably, at least I tried.
Yeah.
But I do like sometimes to play it safe. It's like a safe one won't always necessarily get me where I want to be at the end. The jumps might be too big. So it's kind of like, it's a bit of a dice roll.
Yes, I really like that though. Like it makes it more exciting, right? For everyone involved, spectators and the lifters.
Oh yeah. Not so much for the spotters and loaders on the platform though.
Something you said there as well. You were saying about obviously body weight and stuff can affect how the suit fits. It might fit a little bit differently. So is it quite common when people cut for comp that their suits then fit a bit differently? Like if they don't quite recomp the same, or if they bloat more, or
yeah, exactly. So if you're using the same suit in training as you're going to use on the platform, but in training, if you're 2, 3, 4 kilos heavier, then that is of course it's going to fit very differently. It's not going to be as tight in places. So you will sometimes see that reduction in numbers which the lifter's able to put out there on the platform as a result of that cut. That's one of the reasons why lifters might have a training suit, comp suit, for example, where they might have a suit that's slightly smaller that they use on competition because they know they've cut down. So again, but then that creates another realm of unpredictability about it all, doesn't it? Like what might happen here? We have no idea. Let's find out. You know, like you put practice in classic and you can like, okay, that's what I'm going to open on. That's fantastic. But a lot of the time with my lifts and me, I say we put a number in, but we really decide what our opener is going to be in the warm-up room, don't we? Because we know how things are moving and we know where you're at. So if you're struggling to hit depth with what should be your last warm-up, or you're struggling to get to parallel, you might need a little bit more weight to hit depth today. Ideally, we don't need more weight to hit depth today because that was our safe number. But if it's not safe today, then you have to change things. And again, that creates more of an unpredictability about the situation, which just, it makes it a little bit more stressful for all concerned, really. You'll find equipped coaches are not based by anything.
I was about to say, I think equipped definitely brings a certain level of resilience. I don't know how closely you follow Classic, but I know Agatha Shitko at the first Sheffield, she nearly bombed on bench. And I remember Jo Whiteley, when she was commentating, she was like, she's an equipped lifter. She's not fazed by this. I was like, do you know what? That's probably a really good point, actually.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, she's doing the same Classic, isn't she? She's walking that tightrope of it's everything or nothing. You know, she's going there to win and nothing less. So she's going to take risks, and it paid off last year, didn't it? You know, I'm really excited to see what she puts out there this year, as her numbers in training have been insane. So it's going to be an interesting watch tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's just really interesting seeing as well when classic lifters and equipped lifters switch between the two, and seeing how competitive they are. Like again, I don't know how closely you follow, but like Shell Backlund, he was an incredible equipped lifter, and then he's obviously come back to classic. To start with, his numbers were a bit lower, but he's all of a sudden shot up to the top again. And it's like you said, there is obviously a carry. Like if you're really strong, you're going to be strong regardless, but it's what you can get out of the suit, I guess, isn't it?
Precisely. And Kiel, he's been in for quite some time now, but like I was saying, he's not like the best equipped lifters are not weak classic. And what he's done is he's gone on a little bit of specificity, hasn't he, for his classic lifting, and all of that strength that's always been there and that he's been working so hard for has started to really manifest. And you know, he's gonna move some insane things as well, isn't he? It's gonna be a really exciting contest. Like,
yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Who's your bet on?
I think those two are going to win. I think Shell on the men's side, Agatha on the women's side are going to win. If Agatha doesn't win, I think it'll be Evie Corrigan sweeping in again. But I think we'll have a repeat winner on the women's side for sure. What are you thinking?
Well, I don't like to predict things. I come from an unpredictable world. So I'm just excited to see some really big tins get shifted, to be honest.
Are you going to watch?
I'm excited to see what Sunita squats.
Yeah, that's going to be incredible. It's all going to be incredible. I feel like Sheffield is almost Christmas for powerlifters. Like, I felt more excitement over the last week thinking about Sheffield than I have in all of December thinking about Christmas. Like, I just want to watch Sheffield.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I also wanted to ask you, with equipped training, do you obviously, I'm assuming you're not in equipment all the time. Like, is there quite a lot of classic training within that? Is there a lot of accessories within that?
Yeah, absolutely. For the majority of lifters, the training is mostly raw. So unless you're learning the equipment, you don't really need to be in the equipment that regularly. Most of my lifters, I'm just plucking them out of the thin air because like it's how I've trained, how I always trained, how I trained under Dean and how I've trained since, is once you've learnt the kit, you only really need to be in it a few times before a competition because you know what you're doing. Yeah. Right, so you're almost tuning, so you're still building that machine the same way as a classic lifter is all the time, only you know you might use slightly different, more kit specific variations. So you'll hear the term banded around in equipped box squat jail, which is where people have forgotten how to use their suit properly, so they get stuck on a box for a period of time in their training. And a good box squat will build a good classic squat, you know, because it's very hip dominant, but you know, strong hips means you're going to have a strong squat regardless, right? But most of the training is raw. And even if I'm teaching somebody how to use the kit, I wouldn't have them in it every week because it's very fatiguing. It would be like putting 100, 110, 120% of your max on your back every week for weeks on end. It's not going to be conducive to much except for getting very, very tired and probably getting hurt. So I tend to keep it to once every couple of 3 weeks, depending on the lifter. And in the run into a competition, a couple of 3 times is usually enough. And that's for each piece of equipment.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think you can see it in equipped lifters when they've done an equipped comp or when they've done a heavy session or something. Like, I think the bloodshot, like face and eyes and stuff is more common, isn't it, than it would be in classic? And no one could go that heavy all the time.
I've seen it in classic lifters though. It's to do with the blood pressure, isn't it? And you put in a lot of extra load through your body and equipped. So like the forces that are enacting upon you are more massive. So, and the suit itself generates a lot more internal pressure because it's not made of, so for example, a lot of classic lifters might use a slingshot, right? It's not made of that material. I think that's a misunderstanding as well. They think it's going to be really, really stretchy, and it's absolutely far from it. There is an amount of give to it, but it's not very much. And so you can imagine the pressure that generates, like, well, you're trying to work against it. So that's why you tend to see a little bit more of the old capillaries getting burst and a few red eyes here and there. But it's just normal. We're just like, quick squats today. Okay.
I assume as well then with that, it probably takes a bit longer for your central nervous system to recover after a competition than it probably would for a classic lifter.
I think like anything, it depends on how well conditioned you are.
Yeah.
I think if you're relatively new to lifting equip, then yes, the recovery from using the equipment is going to be longer. But I think if you train for that specifically and you over time adapt to that, then the recovery rate's no different really. I tend to need a good couple of days, but I'm not sure if it's the equipment or if it's the mental fatigue from a competition, to be honest. And then I tend to get back in the gym relatively quickly on my light days. And then I'll leave heavy for another week or so after that. You know, no, you're not going to be able to max out your classic squat 3 days after you've just done a full power equip meet. That's mental. But you can. It depends on how well conditioned you are. I mean, last year I bombed the Arnolds on the first 2 on squats and bench, but then I came back and got the British record bench the next day. So it just depends on where you're at as an individual, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. One other question I want to ask you about was the deadlift suit, because this is one that I am fascinated by. Because am I right in thinking a lot of equipped lifters, maybe not necessarily at like a high level, don't wear a deadlift suit because they're quite specific to how you pull?
Okay.
I could be off with that.
So in the deadlift, you'll know this yourself, the start position is pretty critical to all of the rest of it. So the deadlift suit can compromise that start position. So quite often when you're first starting out learning how to use a deadlift suit, you end up looking like a question mark as you're trying to pull. And so you locking it out from that point becomes nigh on impossible. So a lot of lifters find they actually pull less because the start position is compromised. You can counter that by going in a bigger deadlift suit, or a lot of lifters just squat and bench in kit and then deadlift raw to start off with, whilst they then find the right suit that works for them, which there's many and varied. There are deadlift suits for sumo and conventional, and they're not the same. They are cut slightly differently. And then some people will deadlift in a squat suit. Some people will deadlift in a suit back to front. It's all very individual what works, and that can take an amount of experimenting to figure it out. But that's probably why, is because it compromises that start point. And once that's done, then you've got problems.
That's actually really interesting. I was going to ask you if there's a different suit for sumo or conventional.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting that there are. And it's just so interesting to me, like how important experience obviously is on classic and equipped, but the nuances into each piece of kit, each different size of kit, each brand of kit, how to adjust that one piece of kit. Like, it's just so much to learn. And I just think, I mean, it shows the importance of having a good coach and a good team around you, I guess, as well.
It's one of those things. I think everybody's always learning. You will never know it all. And I think that that's something that you have to accept. I mean, the knowledge which I've gleaned from countless sources. So each coach that I've worked with personally, I've learned from them, but I also learned from other athletes who I've come across. And like we're always talking about, okay, so bench shirt specific, because there's so many little nuances and little adjustments that you can do to it. I've learned from countless athletes what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And the head coach of the bench team, Martin Marshall, taught me an awful lot about how that works, as well as Dean. He does adjustments slightly differently on his shirt. So there's just so much. And if you're open to always learning, then there'll always be another box to unlock to try and just get an extra couple of kilos out of somebody, which I think makes it, again, more interesting and more exciting.
I think one of my questions was going to be, what do you love so much about equipped? But I feel like this is everything at this point.
Genuinely everything. I love the people. I love that team sport environment, but that's where I spent all of my adult life. And I love that you can I saw someone turn a completely dead 175 kilo bench in the warm-up room into a 190 on the platform on Saturday. And you kind of like, that was just kit adjustment that did that, because the strength was always there. We just had to mess with the kit. And I think because of that extra dynamic, I will always just find it more interesting and classic for me personally.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of classic lifters don't maybe realize with equipped as well, though. And I think that's maybe why they don't necessarily see it as interesting. But when you start to learn, like, I'm not saying I understand any of the nuances in equipped at all, but when you start to see these things and learn these things, and like the people I follow that now do equipped, like seeing them talk about all this stuff, it does make it more interesting to follow, because there's just so much more behind it.
Yeah,
it just adds, like, if you love powerlifting, I feel like you should probably love both sides, because there's so much to both sides, and also there's lessons from both sides too. Like, the importance in equipped of not panicking if you miss an attempt is a very good skill to have in classic.
Well, exactly. It is just powerlifting at the end of the day. We're both out there to lift as many red circles as possible, aren't we? And that's the name of the game. How many circles can we put on that bar and still shift it? So it's just a different way of doing it. Yes, of course, we wear equipment to do more. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, do it raw then. No, that's not what I'm trying to achieve here. And for me, I can't get excited about my classic bench because I put 100 kilos on that for my shirt bench, and now I've tasted 200 kilos plus. Anything with a 1 in front of it just isn't exciting. And that's how I explain it to people. It's like, yeah, my raw bench, I have no idea what it is. I haven't done a raw competition on bench for so long now, and I haven't tested it. I don't know what it is. But going on my shirt bench, assuming that I get about 100 kilos out of it, it's going to be about 130, 140, something like that. You know, that's a good bet. You know,
which is still an insane bench, but I get your point.
If I trained it, might find out, but I'm too busy trying to get the biggest equipped bench press in the world to worry about that. You know, it's one of those, isn't it? That's. But so yeah, when people are like, "Oh well, just do it raw," no, I don't want to. I want to do this. You know.
No, definitely, and I think this also, the whole conversation we're having points out there is a place in powerlifting for pretty much everyone. Like depending on what you're after, it doesn't have. If you don't want to do the classic, you don't want to do that, then maybe you want the team element more. Go try equipped. Like there is, if you get bored of one, try the other.
It's just sport at the end of the day, isn't it? And it's just lifting heavy circles. It's just doing it a slightly different way, you know. And in one, you're more likely to lift more weight. Yes, isn't that what the sport's supposed to be about, though? You know, does it matter how you go about lifting more weight? We're just out here to lift more weight. You know, I have a lot of time for classic. I work with a lot of classic lifters, and I'm very invested in their progress because that is their progress. And classic can be exciting when the amount that they're shifting now is insane. You know, it's just, for me, I want to say the equipment. Yeah, I prefer the equipment, even though it hurts. I like the equipment.
But like you say, though, when you get to that certain level of skill practice, you don't need to wear the equipment all the time. So it also makes it probably more enjoyable then too, in some ways too, because you don't have to be in pain all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. It's always exciting for me when I do get in the equipment, and I do look forward to it throughout a prep, to be fair. I always want to really push that limit. And I think that equipment really does allow you to put your body to places where it cannot go raw, to find out exactly what that top end is. And I think that that's exciting.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with the equipment as well. So I think, again, this could be myth, this could be true. I'm guessing at least to a certain point it's true. Equipment can be painful, cause bruising, that sort of thing. Now, I'm assuming you kind of get used to it anyway, but is that quite common in people that maybe start with their equipment too tight as well? Their body is just getting a bit of a shock. What are your kind of thoughts on that and advice?
Well, like I said, the equipment isn't flexible.
Yeah.
So you're working against something which is trying to work its way back to its original start point. So there is always going to be an element of bruising. It doesn't have to be mad. Obviously, the tighter equipment you get, the more bruising you're probably gonna get. But like, it doesn't have to be insane to start off with. You can build a tolerance up. And if you're in relatively, like around the sort of right sized equipment to learn in, it's not unbearable. It's not intolerable. It's discomfort more than pain.
Yeah.
Which you can build your tolerance up over time. I mean, I wear quite big kit even now. Like I never really went for the really teeny tiny suits and the really teeny tiny shirt. I found I could use slightly bigger equipment with more proficiency and maintain my form more easily. So that enabled me to perform my best. So just getting tighter and tighter equipment isn't always the gateway to more kilos, because it will compromise your form and it will make it more difficult for you to use the equipment. So it's very individual. but I would never say, yeah, we're going to put you in a teeny tiny bench shirt that's going to really, really hurt you for your first go. Like that's not going to help anybody. So you start off big. As your tolerance and your capacity builds, then you just get smaller if you want to. You might get in a bench and think, this is not for me. I never want to do that again. Like, that does happen. And that's okay as well, you know, and classic's the place for you, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. That was a really, really good answer, definitely. And I think if people want to try Equipped, obviously you've said people they can reach out to. In terms of knowing what equipment to get, would you just say go to a session with one of these people and let them talk you through it? Because I think that might be something that also puts people off, is even knowing where to start with the equipment.
We have across the country quite a significant pool of equipment, which we use to help people the first time they try it at the taster days. So I know I have more equipment than sense. Most of my equipment is smaller sizes though for the kids, but across the country we have a pool of spare equipment, and we are more than happy to mail this around to help get people in. So if you express an interest in wanting to try it, ordinarily somebody will ask you roughly what your body weight is, you know, because that tends to give us a rough gauge of what sort of size equipment you're going to need. And then obviously we figure that out by putting you in it, if that's the right size or not, because you might be quite broad in the chest, for example, but a small lifter. So I have a 74 kilo lifter who's really, really broad. And he needs a bigger shirt because he's quite wide in the shoulder, or the same size shirt also fits one of my 93s. So it's all very individual, but you can find that out on your taster. Usually we just need your body weight roughly, and we can figure it out. And then we will work to find the kit to get you in the kit to let you try it. And then often we lend the kit as well for people to try again, like perhaps a little bit closer to home. So for example, somebody came a few counties over and saw me in a session, and I sent them away with kit so that they could then go to somebody who knows kit closer to home. Then that's fine as well. So
yeah, I think that's really cool. It's lovely how much of a community is within Equipped. And I wanted to also ask you, I feel like the last thing we'll chat about is your role now as the junior GB head coach. Is this the second year now? You're not going into year two?
Yeah, I was appointed last year. So we took a pretty big team by all intents and purposes to Euros and Worlds last year. I think there'd just been like one or two juniors knocking around who'd done internationals before that point. So this was huge. And yeah, second year running. And we've got more kids.
I was about to say, I'm assuming from what I'm seeing, it's growing again. Like I'm sure this year you'll have even more again apply, and it's great to see the growth in the juniors. And it's
I mean,
back to life.
We had I think 8 do the British last year, and we had I think it's 11 this year. Like Ray Bowring was on the roster, but he's obviously didn't lift at the British, and I think his goals are probably going to be open this year rather than going to do juniors, because he's a phenomenal lifter, both classic and equipped. Again, there you go, another person who is literally world-class level at both. So yeah, we've grown considerably this year, which is fantastic, and it's testament to the effort that everyone's putting in. You know, the equipped lifters around the country, making it accessible for the youngsters. And we've got coaches dotted. I've got a coaching team that's dotted around all over the place so that the kids can go to somebody for their kit sessions, as I can't get around the country. I'm here in the Midlands, quite happy, but we've got kids up in Newcastle, we've got kids down in Gosport and Wales and everywhere in between. So it's really good that the wider equipped community are making it accessible for them, so that they feel that they've got a place to go, and then they can represent their country, which is, believe me, they are on fire for that.
I think that's really good. I think from what I've seen as well, like they are a team. Like I know the open team are as well, don't get me wrong, like the classic open team, but the equipped juniors, like they do all seem to band together, and it is a team, and it makes it so cool for them to do it all together as well.
They really did gel very well last year. And considering we threw all of these teenagers into a hotel together at the Europeans last year, and it was a little bit rushed because I didn't get appointed until March. It was at the Arnold's when they appointed me, which was fantastic. So it was all a little bit hastily put together. We got them all out there, and they had some fantastic performances, I have to say, but they all really, really gelled, and it was great. And I think me and my assistant head coach, Matt, we sat there and we went, that went really well. They all get along really, really brilliantly. And the new guys all seem to have come into the fray really, really nicely as well this year. And I'm looking forward to watching how that community just sort of grows, and as they bond over the year, it's going to be really nice because they're going to be together and they're going to be lifting together right the way through to the Open, hopefully. So some of them, I've got 15-year-olds on the sub-junior team this year. They're going to be around for like 8-9 years before they get late, and I think it's just going to be nice for them to have that, which it's exciting. I'm really excited for their progress.
Yeah, and I think it's also really lovely to see how much you not just love Equipped, but how proud you are of the junior team, like how much you love that role as well. Like it's such a good fit for the role, and it's really exciting to see you take that on. And I remember you saying to me at All England last year, like your goal was to obviously just help that team expand, and it is.
No, I love them. They're brilliant. They keep me young. I mean, I just started in the Masters this year, and like sometimes I sit there and it's a little bit mind bending. But they're really ambitious, and they do make mistakes. I mean, the Manchester Open, there was a few of them there, and there were several quite big mistakes that got made at that competition that were completely outside of any of us coaches' control. We had one of the juniors, they said, "Oh, I washed my suit this last week," and we were like, "You did what?" No, don't ever do that again. No wonder you didn't get a squat in. Like simple things like that they don't know because they've not come across it before. And I think it takes another level of patience to work with them because of that, because they are going to make some silly mistakes that open lifters perhaps might not make, and it just makes it's an opportunity for more relaxed and more learnings, isn't it? And because I see my job as to prepare these youngsters for when they go open. Yeah. So it's my job to get them used to the environment, to get them used to what the equipment's going to do, to get them to know themselves better as lifters. And then by the time they turn 23, 24, they're then ready for what comes next. And, so all the mistakes happened with me, and I can just laugh with them and joke about it and be like, oh, well, never mind, next time then.
I think it's important to also have that relaxed attitude with it though, because in the moment it probably feels like the end of the world, like the first time one of them bombs out or something, even though they probably know it might happen. It must feel like the end of the world. So to have someone there in your corner to be like, it's not a big deal, it happens to all of us,
you'll be fine. Right. Well, I bombed my first international meet. One Brits went to Europeans and bombed it, and I was devastated, and I was an adult. It took me weeks to get past it, and I try and normalize it for them. It's not normal to bomb classic, right? Because you're a lot more in control of the situation. But it's just a reminder, isn't it? You're not necessarily in control of all of these variables. Some of them you can control and some of them you can't. And especially when you're a youngster, a young sub-junior stepping onto the international platform for the first time, it's big for any of us, right? It's huge at any level of athlete. But if you're like 14, 15, 16, and that is the thing that's happening right now, that's going to be so overwhelming, and it's knowing that and just trying to help them just stay chill. You're going to be all right. You just got to go out there and do everything you've just done before 1,000,001 times and you'll be all right. But yeah, it's just nice. And watching them do well, it's just, I can't articulate it. I just really, really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And proud.
It's wonderful to see. It really is. It's good to see them have someone in their corner that is like that and that clearly wants them to do well, obviously. Questions for you before we wrap up. Firstly, obviously you are a fantastic athlete as well as coach. So athlete side, I think I've seen you're dealing with injuries, but have you got any upcoming comps or anything to look out for?
Well, just on British. I just received my invite to World Bench this morning, so that's my next big rodeo. We'll see what I manage to cook up for that. I've got big ambitions, but the stars and Neptune and all the planets and everything have to align for that to come off. But so I'm excited to go to Norway. Anything else coming up? That's it at the moment. Being a bench only athlete at the moment because my knee is in a state of disrepair. Once my knee gets hopefully repaired, we might be able to make a comeback in the full power world, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I'm sure bench only world is going to go fantastically anyway. It's fine. I'm very excited. Right? Exactly. And I like what you said earlier in the conversation as well about how like you go to win, you know what you want to aim for, so you just like you risk it all. And I like that approach. I think it makes it fun, it makes it exciting, and you've got the experience behind you to do it. So
yeah, for me, I think for that one, it's a silver at minimum.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
That's the goal, silver at minimum. Obviously, the opposition might turn up and they may have made some massive progress since last year, and that might stop me right in my tracks, in which case we're going to have to Hail Mary it all. So
even more exciting.
Anyway, it'll be exciting, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And then coaching wise, because you are also a very fantastic and popular coach here in GB as well, want to ask firstly if you have spaces, if you coach classic and equipped or just equipped, and if so, how people can reach you.
Yeah, well, I do have some spaces. I do, like, I'm not that person that say, right, I have this many spaces and that's it. Once I've reached capacity, I'll reach capacity and that's that. And I'm quite good if people are interested at fitting them in. So I do have some spaces at the moment. I do coach classic and equipped. I have more classic lifters than equipped lifters, actually. It's the first question that people always ask me, do you coach classic? Yes, I know a thing or two about just getting generally strong. Yes, of course. So yeah, I do both, and I enjoy both types of my athletes' journeys, which is fantastic. If you're a sub-junior looking for a coach, specifically sub-junior, then I have all the safeguarding and the DBS and everything which I need to have, which I think is important that sub-juniors should be looking for coaches anyway. They should make sure they've all got their boxes ticked. But just pop me a message on Instagram. That's all you have to do. I don't have a website or anything. I've not really pressed it, but it's sort of grown organically. But I'm always interested in talking to people who are interested.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
It's really good. I didn't know you had more classic than I could. I knew you coached some classic, but I didn't know if they were just people that had been around for a while. That's really interesting.
I have quite a few classic lifters. I've got all ages from sub-junior right the way up to masters. Yeah. Obviously, I'm more known in the equipped world, and more of my lifters that are probably seen around and about the place are the equipped guys. But yeah, I do enjoy working with the classic lifters. It's nice, because they train differently, so it keeps me keeping ahead of myself on the different approaches to training, which in the end helps everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so if people want to reach you, then you said to just message you on Instagram.
Yeah,
what is your Instagram handle for anyone?
Weighty Kate, can't miss me. And just pop me a message and I'll be happy to have a chat and see if it will be a good fit for you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining me. Is there anything else you want to shout out before I stop the podcast?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me. It's always nice to hear more people want to hear about Equipped.
Definitely.